One thing I think Trumbo really fit in very well with the Orioles, in addition to all those home runs, as we go down to the ballpark right now, they're getting ready to have the press conference. But, you know, when you look back at Trumbo, the fact remains he just was a real nice fit for the Orioles this season. Let's go down to Dan Duquette right now at Baltimore's Camden Yards.
Trumbo, he signed a 3-year contract with the Orioles. We're extremely happy that he's back with the ball club. We traded for him a little over a year ago, and he put together a terrific season. 48 home runs. He was one of the top home run hitters in the history of the club. He led the league in home runs. He came through with a lot of clutch hits, including in the playoffs against Toronto. And beyond that, he's got some great personal qualities. He's very dependable. He shows up for work every day. He's got an excellent work ethic. And he's a very, very good veteran player that is an example for younger players in the organization. We're happy to have him back. And it's my pleasure to congratulate him on his 3-year deal with the Orioles. Looking forward to his contribution to our 2017 team and beyond. So congratulations, Mark.
Thank you very much.
All right. Get 45 there. Nice job.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You know, I'm extremely appreciative of the kind words Dan said. And I'm thrilled to be back with the ball club that, you know, was my first choice by far. I tried to make that kind of clear throughout the process, that this was, I felt like the right place for me, you know, from a personal standpoint, but also this is a place I know that I can do well in, a place with great people, very supportive of what we do on the field, not only internally, but, you know, our fans as well. And, you know, I'm just thrilled that I found the right home for me. And it took a little while, but it all came together.
Thank you, Mark. We're ready for questions. Rock.
Rock masn Sports. Mark, were you confident all along that this could still get done, even when it appeared for a while that there wasn't much communication?
I was always hopeful. You know, the process is pretty unique, and if you talk to people who've been through it before, there can be a lot of highs and lows. And a lot of the information that gets reported is not always terribly accurate, which can be a little bit challenging, you know, from everyone's perspective, because there's only a select few people that actually know what's going on and you know, are working hard to get a deal done. And in this case, we had a great relationship with Dan, and, you know, an open line of communication, and ultimately came to an agreement that I think works well for both sides.
Brittany Gerolin, Orioles.com. Dan, when you look at adding Mark now to this lineup, it looks pretty familiar to what you had a year ago. How pleased are you with what you were able to do this winter?
Well, the addition of Mark really gives us a proven professional hitter and RBI man. He drove in over 100 runs last year in the middle of the lineup, so that makes it a lot more difficult for opposing pitchers, particularly when they have to go through the lineup a couple of times. And I think that the text I got from Manny, who was excited that we signed Mark, I think underscored the fact that when you have a power hitter in the middle of the lineup that other pitchers have to be very careful with. That means that they got to put energy into it. They got to make good pitches. That means that there's other hitters in the lineup that are also going to get better pitches to hit, because if you have a depth to your lineup, which Mark helps bring depth to the lineup, then your hitters should get better pitches to hit. And, you know, there's a cumulative effect of having good, solid, proven hitters and power hitters, dangerous hitters in the lineup, sluggers that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. And that's what Mark brings to the team. So from that perspective, I think it gives us a little bit more depth, gives us a little bit more presence. If you remember that last year, Porcello had a confrontation with Manny where he threw a ball inside, and he said, Manny, why would I try to hit you with that guy on deck behind you, right? There were words to that effect. He didn't exactly say that, but words to that effect, right? So he was concerned about who came behind Manny, and that's affected how he approached Manny and the lineup. So I think when you have a couple of power hitters in your lineup, it makes the whole lineup better. And, of course, we love pitching, defense, and 3-run homers. So, we're glad that Mark's back from that perspective. And the club has had the home run champ for the last 4 years, which our fans like. So it helps us score runs, and it makes for an entertaining product. And beyond that, Mark's personal qualities are a real fit with the ball club. He's a gritty player. He fits in with the team. He's a good teammate. He's just got a lot of good qualities, which I think the Orioles recognize, and we always did recognize. It's just that we wanted to get the deal that was right for the club in our market, and eventually we got that.
John Mueller from the Baltimore Sun. Mark, how did this whole process meet your expectations? Obviously, it took a long time for the deal to get done. How did this all fit in with what you thought was going to happen towards the beginning of free agency?
I wouldn't say it was exactly what I had thought, but it's a process that I could probably give people advice in the future, but you kind of go into it thinking that you might have a ton of suitors. You lead the league in home runs. Who's not interested in that? And then you realize that there aren't that many vacancies at times for what you do, especially this year. There are a lot of people that have similar skill sets to me, and you see a lot of those guys that are still out there fighting for 2 or 3 jobs. And that's just the way that this year went. Had it been another year, it could have been different. But I feel like the teams that were interested were always very professional. But the whole time I really wanted to be back here, so I kept, that was always the mindset I had personally, and I think that it was a pleasurable experience in a lot of ways. Some of it wasn't as much, but in the end, I'm thrilled to be back where I am.
Rich next.
Shoot off press box online. Mark, you just mentioned that it wasn't always comfortable. You're a pretty private person. Was it difficult hearing the stuff bandied about, and sort of going through the weight because people were speculating on different homes for you?
Yeah, a little bit. I think one of the hardest things is you go through the arbitration process. We were talking about this earlier, and the outline of that process is to kind of really define your value, and your weaknesses are going to come to the surface quite quickly. Free agency, you think that maybe that's a little bit behind you, but it in turn turns into almost a more amplified process of that in a lot of ways, trying to determine just how low your value really might be. But that's where the business side of it comes in. Nobody's looking to overpay anybody, and you got to be semi-realistic when you're trying to find a contract that works for you.
Dan Conley, BaltimoreBaseball.com. Mark, were you ever close to signing elsewhere? Did you ever feel in your mind that you might be? And was there one thing that kind of turns you this way more so than anything?
I guess there were a few offers that might have made some sense. That was very early on. But, there were a few others that came along that were easy to kind of pass on, just because I always held out a lot of hope that there would be an opportunity here down the road, which is fortunately what ended up happening. What was the second part of your question?
Is there anything that kind of swayed you this way besides obviously your interest in returning?
Just the experience I had here. If there were competitive offers on the table, even if this one had been a little bit lower, this was my first choice.
Mark Beviano from WJZ TV. Mark, you're a West Coast guy. You had played for 3 clubs out west. 1 year here, you mentioned comfort, and now this is a home for 3 years. Can you describe what you've taken in and what this has felt like in terms of this town and the fans that have kind of pulled you in or you feel comfortable with?
Yeah, I just found it overall a very easy place to come to work, an enjoyable place to come to work. Playing in your hometown has some really unique challenges, and that was a great time too. But from a purely professional side of things, the distractions were very limited here in a good way. The fans were exceptional, and the ballpark just in and itself is really inspiring to come to work every day, I think. Great group of teammates, beat that to death, but it really is true. And I think the way I was welcomed coming into spring training last year as a new player, which I was trying to tell Seth Smith recently, is you're going to love it here. They just know how to make you feel comfortable right away, and that, in turn allows you to go out and play your best baseball.
Peter Schmuck, Baltimore Sun. Mark, a lot of talk after you signed, even before you signed, where you fit back in. Was it going to be a majority of DH back in right field? Do you have any sense of that? And also, did you feel like you got progressively more comfortable in right field last year?
I don't quite know what the role is going to be. Dan could probably expand upon that. I assume it'll probably be a mixture of what I did last year. On the defensive side of things, it's always hard for me to kind of, I have an opinion. I think I do an adequate job out there. I know I get hammered in a lot of forums for, some of the things I do, and, that's, the opinion of many. But at the end of the day, I strive to make the routine plays out there. I throw the ball well. I'm accurate. I may not make some of the web gem catches, but I definitely don't think I'm a liability out there. So, if Buck, chooses to put me out there, I'm going to do everything I can to play a good right field, left field, wherever needed on the defensive side. But if I ended up DH and most of the time, that'd be great too.
Dave Ginsburg, Associated Press. Mark, you turned down the qualifying offer, but you do get a 3-year contract and millions. How do you feel that worked out for you in terms of how important was getting a 3-year deal here? Not having to go through, I guess, this process again.
Sure, I'm quite happy with it. Going year to year for 6 years at the major league level with no guarantee beyond a 1-year deal. I mean, that can be a bit nerve-wracking. You kind of feel like at any given time, you lose a step and, your job could go to somebody else. But I think if you're able to survive for 6 years and play at a fairly high level, getting rewarded with a multi-year deal is quite nice, and it does feel pretty satisfying.
Steve Molesky from masnsports.com. Mark, what are the challenges to have as strong a year, if not better, in 17?
Well, that's the goal. I mean, I think I was able to make some changes at the end of 2015 that helped me into 2016. Some of the philosophies that I've tried to incorporate, some of the mechanical things as well. Last year, was obviously a culmination of a lot of things that I've tried to work on and get better at. And I think that this year I have a much better understanding of those things, a better understanding of the pitching, in our own division. And, the one area that I've always tried to get better on and I'd still like to continue is the play discipline. It's been the hardest thing for me by far, but it's something that watching some of my teammates that are quite good at it and picking their brains, I still look to get better at it.
Any more questions, Mark?
Mark, having been traded before and now getting a 3-year contract, have you gotten trade protection in this new contract? Is that important to you in terms of no trade or anything like that?
He has trade protection in the contract, and there's some provisions where you can't trade it for a period of time. So it seems to work for all of the players that we sign to the limited no trade. That seems to work out well for them, and a number of them have stayed with the club for a long time.
Tom Mueller from the Baltimore Sun. Dan, how do you see the rest of the offseason playing out in terms of signings? This is obviously a major move, but how do you feel you guys are set up entering spring training at this point?
The important thing that I want to talk about with Mark is that Mark was always clear about his desire to re-sign with the Orioles, and I think that really helped in us getting the deal done. I mean, he made it clear at the start of the process that this is where he would like to play, and then during the process he also reiterated that he wanted to come back to Baltimore, that he had a good year, and this was a place that he wanted to call home. And that's really why we got the deal done. And then, You know, Mark is an elite player. He has elite power and elite skills, and you've heard him talk about his profession. And you can't lead this league in any category without being really good at what you do and without being an expert that works at it, 24/7. And you heard Mark talk today. You don't get to be the home run champ without a lot of diligence and perseverance and self-assessment. And, that's really what I admire about Mark and his capabilities and why I'm so happy to have him back with the club. We're still looking to fill out our ball club, and there's some other opportunities that we're going to explore, but we hope to sign some players between now and the start of the spring. We're looking for some depth to our lineup as well as some depth to our pitching staff.
Okay, I think that will conclude today's press conference. Thank you. Welcome back.
Nice going, buddy.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.